Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy hump day here on Inside the Game, presented by the National Soccer Network. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. Episode number 13. I am back home. The last couple of days I've been in our studios in Shelby Township, producing games in between the podcasts. So as you can imagine, that might be a little difficult to pull off, but maybe for some, not for me. Yeah, good morning. I mean, first things first, Nathan, me and you've known each other for about a year and a half now, right? Give or take, plus or minus a month.
Yeah, give or take or so.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize we were at this comfortable part of our relationship where you
Ooh.
feel comfortable sharing text with me, like you did this morning. I didn't know that we were at that part of our relationship. It's like they say if a man can be comfortable, comfortable with a woman or their partner, then that tells you how much he loves you. So when
Huh.
you send that text to me, does that mean that you love me? Is that what that
That is my
means?
roundabout way of saying it, yes. And, I didn't know we were on that stage yet either, but so I just decided to put us on that stage. So that was kind of it. I was like, well,
We
been
are a year
long
and a
enough.
half into it. I
Yeah,
mean, I guess if we were like only 2 weeks in, I'd be like, "Whoa, that's
yeah,
that's a little that's a little
yeah, just a
forward. I'm gonna
little
go ahead and
too.
back out. I'm gonna."
Yeah. I wouldn't have sent that to you in the first week I knew you, but I mean,
Now we're
back
there.
when you
Now we're
initially
there.
discovered me and you just slid in the DMs and you were like, "Hey, I like your stuff. Come work for me." I wouldn't have been like, "That's cool. I'm pooping. I'll get back to you here in a second." But
Well, you could have said
you
the
know,
emoji. I mean, that would have been funny too. I'm just the emoji. I mean, I do that every once in a
that's
while. I'll
true.
send the
I
emoji
couldn't
out,
have
but
could have not gotten so graphic about it. Yeah, that's
no,
fair.
and I wasn't going to go into detail what the text was. I just thought it was funny to kind of tell the audience, the
What?
viewer,
Oh,
that
okay.
we've
Spill the
got
beans.
these.
My bad.
Yeah, you did that on your own. I figured I'd let you do that, but it's funny. We this is episode number 13, and the thing that I want people to kind of get a grasp of is that while we are being serious, that we don't necessarily take ourselves as serious as we maybe try to be, and that we try to have fun, right? I mean, and if you're going to do this to just be serious, it's that that's no fun either. But I wanted to talk about something this morning before we hop into talking about you, and I know that you don't like talking about yourself as much as I like talking about myself. Um, it might seem like I do, but I really don't like talking about myself. But um, I wanted to talk about this. We were just talking about this a little bit on in our green room here before the show started about playing video games. I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer since I was a teenager. And if you understand the kind of where I was coming up in the mid '90s, right when games started to happen. I mean, Atari. We had Atari growing up. We had Nintendo, the original Nintendo. And then those were family gifts. My dad would buy those for us, kind of like a family Christmas gift. And then, and as I got older, Sega Genesis came out, right? And then PS1, right? And those were all things that if I wanted them, I had to buy them. And or I had to go find a way to get them, right? I had to not steal them, but I had to find a way. My parents weren't going to buy it for me. Um, so yes, I started to kind of buy. I started to get involved in this pretty heavy, right? And so it's been with me my entire life. I've played video games from time. I mean, whenever there's been a new system, I buy it, right? So PS2s and PS3, I mean PS4. I mean, I've bought them all. I mean, I bought in the Xbox One, Xbox 360, the original Xbox. I mean, I've had them all at some point in time in my life. And right now, we have a PS4. We never got a PS5, which I'd love to get a PS5. But the problem with PS5 is most times I haven't been able to find one. And I don't want to go buy a PS5 and pay the extra $300 for all this stuff I don't want. I hate how they
Yeah.
package all this stuff together. I just don't like that. The reason why I bring this up is this. I have a 14-year-old son. Love this kid to death. He is an exact replica of me in all the annoying aspects. Right. So like I
As they
am
normally end up being.
yep. I mean, my parents go, John, that was you growing up. So, this is the karma, this is exact. And everyone said, that's, you're your dad. So, and I love him. I love him to death. He is awesome in so many ways. And we played Madden last night, right? We play Madden a lot now lately, more lately, because to be fair, even though he's rarely beaten me, there are times I'd beat him like 85 to like 12 or 85 to 30. I mean, I just beat him, and it wasn't even funny. And of course, what do people do? Oh my God, my team is terrible. My team is terrible. I'm like, dude, you're controlling your team. I'm like, I mean,
or you're
like,
cheating.
I mean,
I think that's a more likely aspect. You're over there cheating.
So
doing some advanced scouting.
Yeah, so we're
Are
playing.
you looking at his hands while he's picking his plays?
No, I don't. But here's the thing, though, right? So I am someone that pays attention to the types of plays that the person who's sitting next to me is playing. I mean, obviously on Madden, there's 3 on the screen, so it's not like you really have a you have a choice. See, me, I will pick plays on purpose, and then I will audible. I'll audible a ton. Right. And I will actually then do a lot of how I'll do quick. I won't do no huddles. I'll go no huddle real quick. And then I'll do a couple of the same plays and then throw them off and reverse and flip it and just do different things just to screw because I have no idea. Those are the things that I do in order to kind of, give myself an advantage. But I pay attention to the way that they're picking plays, and then I'll see their lineup, and then and again, my son picked the Eagles. He was playing the Eagles. So he's got Jalen Hurts. He's got Saquon Barkley, right? He's got Devontae Smith. He's got Brown. He's got 4 or 5 players in the offensive side of the ball that you have to be worried about. But if you're talking about throwing the ball, he's throwing it to Devontae Smith. So all I got to do is just find Devontae Smith on my thing and just follow that guy everywhere and pick him off. Same thing with if Saquon Barkley is running out of the backfield, going out to the edge, I'm gonna go follow. I'm gonna go send someone to him, so that pass doesn't make it to his target. But anyways, the reason why I brought this up is we're playing last night, and I just had a long day. I got up at 5:00 in the morning, and I went to go. I went to all these things, meeting after meeting yesterday. Just a long day. I get home, and we have chili for dinner, by the way, which is my wife. Love the chili she makes. Spicy and hot. Just awesome. Great day for chili, by the way, because it's like negative 400 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so it's cold. It's cold as hell.
Uh-huh.
So we had chili, and after dinner, I had a couple phone calls, more meetings after dinner, and I go to sit down finally. I'm like, hey, let's play some Madden. So we first off started playing the matchup from Saturday, Rams versus Eagles. In the snow. We made it snow. We made it like the same thing. Went for that. We played 6-minute quarters, and the final score of that game, I kid you not, was 81-78.
Just a Big 12 family over there. Just no defense.
Well, so in the early part of the game, he's beating me. He beat me by like 2, I think like 3 touchdowns. He was beating me. I kept throwing the ball away. I had Matt Stat. I'm throwing the ball. It's in the snow. I picked the white unis. He's wearing green. I can't see myself because it's snowing everywhere. So I threw
on the ball, JT.
You can't, man. My running back is terrible. Williams is terrible. And the game is terrible. I can't speak to what he doesn't really, he's terrible. So you run the ball, you get slapped. And again, they're the number 1 running defense in the league. So it's like you're running right into a wall. So I did not. I didn't run the ball. I was throwing it like a lot. Cooper Kupp had 8 touchdowns, 593 yards receiving. Okay. So anyways, he's sitting next to me. Every time he catches a ball, I'm awesome and you're terrible. And then every time I get an interception, yeah, you read the play, you cheating, I'm just like,
as it typically goes. Yes, that is the
do you at home, are you listening in? Don't you hate that kind of player? And again, I love my son. I don't hate my son. I'm just saying, doesn't that just like drive you nuts? Because a lot of us use video games as an escape. Some of us use it as a way to kind of like burn off steam and to take a breather, whatever it might be. There's others of us that use it as a competitive out. You want to go be competitive. You want to go play Call of Duty, and you want to go be on teams, and you want to go be the best Madden player in the world. But if you're like me, who just wants to sit down on a Tuesday night, when nothing's on after what we just experienced this past weekend, not once but twice with the Lions in Ohio State, I just needed to chill. And meanwhile, my son is out of control.
Yeah. No, I hate people like that in the games. I also just hate people like that. Well, hate's a strong word. I shouldn't throw that one around willy-nilly. I don't hate anybody. I dislike that attitude of you're always cheating. You're gonna try to get some sort of advantage. It doesn't really matter what sport you're playing. It doesn't really matter what game you're playing. Just to assume automatically that someone else cheated. It's like that's a lazy way of saying that you weren't prepared or you just didn't do the right thing or you didn't execute. But I find that hilarious because I've never really liked Madden, especially the new ones. But I will say it is difficult in the way that they have literally designed that game to be like you almost have to have a little bit of ball knowledge in order to be able to actually play that game. You know what I mean? Like back in the old days, like that's back when gaming was in its heyday because literally anybody could play. Like you could call halfback dive the whole game and maybe still be competitive. Like now you actually have to pick the right formation. Okay, well they're running cover 2. Let me audible to this. Let me flip to that. Cover 1. Okay, different. So that's the tough of those games now. So like these kids that are playing, talked about it being like taking a stress off your shoulders and a relaxing thing. Like I'm big into Fortnite. I've been playing a little Rocket League and stuff lately.
I love
and
Fortnite,
it's like,
dude. Fortnite's
like
awesome.
it's fun, but also then you run into a group of sweaties and then you get more frustrated than what you were before you even started playing. So
yeah. That's why we went from I stopped building. I gotta build. I thank God they created zero build mode because I'm sitting my buddy and I, we play, he's in Nashville, we play Fortnite all the time and we play duos. And we're pretty good. We used to, and when it was only build mode, our method was it wasn't about how many buildings you could build, which a lot of people will do in that mode. For us, it was, in order for us to be successful, it was to get to like the last 10, right? The last 10. So what did we do? Every time the map would move, we would go find a new bush to hide into, and then come out at the end while people are fighting and just murder people. And that sounds terrible to say it like that, but we would come out of bushes.
You got to load up though.
Yeah, load up. You got to load up and have all the things you need to be successful, but then come out and boom and just start striking people. It was very successful for us. We would win a lot of games that way. And then when they created zero, and then we're like, this is when we lose, we're like, this is obnoxious. We're losing to people who are like just can be massive, with a keyboard, massive building up to the sun. Like what is this?
Yeah, they build a 3-story building with Wi-Fi and the whole works.
But to be fair, my son is always, regardless of Madden, when we play Fortnite, he's also, really into it, right? And he's really good at these games. I mean, for 14, here's the thing. I played as the Rams, and he was the Eagles. And on Sunday afternoon, after we had lost, the game on Saturday, I was already feeling let's go play some football. So we played, the Rams Eagles, and he beat me consecutively, the first time that's ever happened in our history. So it was a really brutal weekend for me on a lot of different levels, from as a father, a man, as a fan, my son, and I didn't hear it, I didn't hear the end of it, right?
So a beating.
So
that's the first straight L for JT over the weekend.
So I got we going last night. I'm losing a good chunk of that game, so I'm not really feeling it as it is. I'm thinking I might be going 3 in a row here. And I come back and win because, he tried to do some things you probably shouldn't do, not paying attention to the clock. And I came back. And then I'm like, dude, let's go. I want to go be the Lions again. So I went back to being the Lions, and I just killed him. He was the Eagles, and I killed him. Good. It wasn't even close. Good. I had like 9 picks in that game. I think the final score of that game was like 60-23. I killed him. And he's like, you can't. I don't. Yeah, well, there's snow in their game. But so I'm like, man, anyways, you think about that too, go, man, this game has me beating these guys by like 40 points. So, that was real life, right?
Hey man, anyway. I've won plenty of Super Bowls with the Lions and make believe land.
I have too, man. I think I've actually record like 9 in a row. It's like but here's the thing. I know that we were just talking about that. I thought that was kind of cool to talk. It's 9:15. If your first time stopping by and you feel encouraged or that urge to subscribe to us, like us, and share this with your friends and family or your enemies, as we've talked about in the past. I don't need to share it with your enemies. And keep coming back for more. We're also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I did not get the one up yesterday up there yet. I was actually working on that kind of before the show. I'll have that up along with the other one here today as well. But hey, if you like merch, we talked about this yesterday on the show. And Peter's well on his way to getting a free shirt. Right?
He's gonna get there.
Yeah, I mean, all he has to do is comment tomorrow during our live show, and which he has done so far successfully 13 times. So 14 times, and he will get there. Now, if he's still listening,
on, Peter.
What I should still say listening is he's got to do it tomorrow at the beginning of the show, and he's got to do it at the end. He's got time.
It starts over if you don't do it. By the way, it starts all over. So.
But head over to nationalsoccernetwork.com and check out our merch. We've got, again, National Soccer Network at the top of the page. It says NSN merch at the top. Just click on that link, and it takes you to the page where all of our merch is located. And we've got a lot of really cool stuff that you can pick up inside the game merch. We've got, a lot of different soccer. The one thing I was looking for when I was thinking about how we're going to do this when it comes to the merch is that I didn't want to be I'm like, who's going to buy just an NSN t-shirt? Who's going to, at the end of the day, I'm not going to go out of my way to go buy an ESPN t-shirt, dude. If it's given to me for free, sure, but I'm not going to go on my way and buy one. So my thought process was we'll create merch that, anyone can buy that they have no problem wearing. And then we put our logo somewhere on the shirt, just not in a prominent place. So our logos are I think it's on the left sleeve. On everything that we do. So when you go to buy our shirts, there is something on the front that could be for anybody, right? And one of our lines right now is soccer versus everybody. So it's a cool slogan, it's a cool message, and then our logo is on the sleeve. And then we've also got our Soccer Nation, which is our new Facebook group, and that we're going to kind of launch into our kind of like our membership community based group that we do, and that just says Soccer Nation on it, and then the logo on the sleeves. So take a look at the merch, and cameramen. I'm not sure. That's just coming in cameramen.
Cameramen.
I don't know. Maybe that's a code for something.
Hey, we're on camera, man. Is that what he's trying to say?
I don't know. But anyways,
do we need a cameraman?
I don't know. But let's get into today. That is who would wear merch. He said wear meth. You
don't have any of that, but we got plenty of t-shirts, tumblers, coffee mugs. None of that stuff. Nope.
Yep. He's like, I'm sorry. No, you're good, dude. It's hilarious how that Kenny. I had to put on the screen though. Still, he made obviously a typo of some kind. But let's get into this, Nathan. So yesterday we talked about me a little bit. You asked me some questions, and I talked about my passion, and obviously I have a ton of it. That's anyone that knows me knows I've got that. But I the one thing I would say too, if you meet me for the first time, the one thing I was always kind of not guilty of, but I think that I kind of had this thing about me where if you met me, especially in my younger years, I think that you didn't necessarily like me on the first time you met me. It took a couple times for you to kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I get him. You know what I mean? Because I kind of came off in this way that maybe I was too cocky or not humble, kind of a thing. And that's probably,
you told me you wanted to take over the world. I'm a humble guy. I'm down to earth.
Like the Austin Power, Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great word. Jimmy goes blame autocorrect. If autocorrect is automatically correcting your thing and taking it from merch to meth, I think you have a problem.
Whoa. Dude. Well, I want to see the other conversations.
Oh boy. All right, so let's get into this morning. A methicide. And let's talk here. So my first question for you, Nathan, is this. Obviously, you asked me a ton of questions yesterday. The first one you asked me is kind of what you're all about, what makes you tick. I'm going to ask the same question of you. What is Nathan Wingler all about? What makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning every single day?
This, because I have to. No, I'm kidding.
I thought
what I no, what I get up for every single morning is pursuing, and I've talked about this many a times, and I'm not going to wax poetic for too long about it because I think people have a somewhat solid understanding of what it is that I do and who it is that I am. I get up every morning pursuing the dream, and that's to me has always been play-by-play broadcasting and delivering those same moments that I got to experience early on in my life and feeling those emotions that I always saw from the people around me when it came to watching sports and consuming sports. And again, just that feeling of, when I was little, it was one of the first things I ever wanted to do. I remember, and I'm very fortunate in this way, knowing what I wanted to do from a very early age. And I did. And like I talked about when I was during the summers, my dad, a handyman, he would always be working on something, cars, something else in the garage. I would always be playing in the driveway. And the likes of, Pat Hughes and Dan Dickerson, it'd always be playing. There'd always be a radio or a TV or something else on. And I enjoyed listening to like sports talk and shows and stuff like we're doing right now. I mean, this is still very entertaining stuff to me, and it's what I consume on a daily basis. But the play-by-play guys were just so enamoring. I mean, they could just draw you in and again tell a story. And we always talk about how in the sports broadcasting world, like the most important thing is relating to an audience, is being able to almost kind of be like their best friend. Like if you were at a game, this is someone that you would want to go watch that game with, who's also giving you context on the game and on the players and on the cities and the teams and everything else like that. So when at an early age, I almost feel like these guys, these broadcasters that I listened to were almost kind of like my other parental figures, right? So I had my mom, my dad, and then I had all of these voices that I was constantly listening to that almost in a lot of ways felt just as familiar as my parents did. And so I wanted to be able to provide that experience for someone down the line professionally on a national basis. I wanted to be that guy, that you felt like you could turn on the radio or turn on the TV, and it's almost like you have a best friend. You might not know anything about that person. Maybe I haven't met every single person that's ever listened to me, but if they ever did and they felt like they were at home and that they could relate to what I was saying and I could relate to them, that was most important. So from an early age, that's what made me tick. I mean, everything I did was geared towards being a play-by-play broadcaster. And it really wasn't just focused on one sport either. I mean, I would, be at sporting events and I would plug my ears just so I could do my own play-by-play, or I would, turn the TV all the way down if the parents weren't around and do my own play-by-play on whatever game happened to be on. I mean, and then that graduated to being a sideline reporter in high school, just because I knew the two gentlemen who were doing the broadcast of my high school football team. It was just a little Bluetooth connection. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but everything I've done since initially learning that I loved play-by-play was in pursuit of play-by-play. So that's what makes me tick. That's what makes me get up in the morning. It's just the pursuit of that dream. And obviously it's become more realistic as the years have gone on and opportunities have opened to me. But that has been the main focus really for me since the beginning.
No, and that's really cool. I mean, I think that ultimately, having a dream and trying to pursue that is obviously the most admirable thing. Because yesterday I had a conversation with somebody, and they want to continue to pursue that dream, but there are some roadblocks that are being put up in their life that are, I think, going to prevent them from trying to go after this. And that leads me to my next question, because I think that all of us go through this in our life in one way, shape, or form, where we want to maybe deviate from what people think we should be doing, right? We want to try something new, and it goes against the grain. It's not the norm. I mean, what we do is not your typical career path, right? It's an atypical career path, and for most people, it doesn't end up with you on ESPN. It doesn't end up with you on Fox Sports, right? So,
yep.
So knowing that, have you had to deal with those roadblocks and make some really tough decisions about like the direction of how far you're willing to take your dream and pursue it? Because that could prevent you from having a good relationship with people. It could prevent you from having a relationship with mom and dad, maybe. It could prevent you in a lot of ways. And you can go into as much detail or as little detail as you like, but I figure that's an important thing, especially when we start talking about this as a career path, because I think there's a lot of
Right.
kids out there who want to maybe do this for a career, and
Right.
they're thinking the big bright lights, Joe Buck on Saturday night,
Hmm.
and that's not it, and that's like the
Hmm.
top 1%. So talk about that.
Hmm. You hear all of the greatest athletes. I'll say this, and it also pertains to what we do because this is a performance based business. If people like the way you perform, you get more opportunities. If they don't like the way you perform, or if you're not professional, or you don't have the sound that they want, or maybe you don't have the connections, then you don't necessarily make it. It is extremely hard to do what we do. But the one thing you always hear the greatest athletes, greatest broadcasters, greatest in any field, really, but specifically in the sports world, what they say, the hugest, most vital key aspect of success is sacrifice, is being willing to put other things aside that you would normally have or take yourself out of certain situations just to make sure that you're in a position to continue doing this. If you're asking me if I ever thought about, have I hit my ceiling? Where am I going to go beyond this point? About every single year at some point, maybe at multiple some points throughout the year. And that is a common experience for what it is that we do. And I always try to put this out there for the younger broadcasters who maybe follow my TikTok page, because I always make advice videos for them. I always try to put this out for anybody that I meet along the way, anybody that I work with. It is a dog fight, a dog fight to stay in this business. But the longer you stay in and the more people you surround yourself with, the more opportunities will come to you. So, to give you a little context, I graduated into the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So, everything that I did in college, whether it be internships, whether it be on air opportunities, anything that may have been available in the sports realm pretty much went away. But in one way or another, that actually kind of helped me. So, that gave me an opportunity, in that moment, because I had the reps that I had in college at Cornerstone, but they didn't really have a broadcasting department. Anything I was doing there was pretty much on my shoulders when I went to college there. But I got my first opportunity to go up to Traverse City and do play-by-play there for the Northwoods League. They were the only active baseball league in America that summer, during that 2020 summer, because minor league baseball and everything shut down. And it wasn't great right out of the gate. There were a lot of moments I had to fall on my face. There were a lot of moments I had to figure out how to call things, and I had to make a lot of mistakes right away. Unfortunately, I learned from them, and that built off of itself. But even years past that, it would be one little thing by one little thing. I get this new gig over here, but I was still working at my day job, and that's something that a lot of broadcasters do. Get up, slave in the morning at whatever it is job that you don't want to work, in order to give yourself the opportunity to step outside of that and go do the fun job, go do the thing you want to do. I think of Bill Burr, because he always talked about how he slept on a futon until he was in his 30s, or someone's couch until he was in his 30s, because he was doing the comedy thing and he realized how hard it was to break into that. But he goes, I have to work the day job, but it doesn't really bother me at all, because the only thing I'm thinking about the entire time I'm there is the opportunity to go out and do the other job. And so I can't really string it all together how it all happened for you guys, because there's a lot of odds and ends, and it wasn't let me put it this way: the pathway to success is not a straight line. It has never been a straight line. It will never be a straight line. I don't really care who you are. And now I'm in the best position I've been in a long time, but in a couple of years after graduation where I didn't really have the opportunities. And then, oh, okay, this just so happens to open up, and this so happens to open up, and it just so happens that way. But if you want to do this, the one thing I will say, you have to be willing to embrace those hungry nights. You know, where maybe the only thing, because you haven't gotten the broadcasting checks in, and maybe someone's a little bit late paying you and the day job's not quite holding up, you're going to have to deal with those nights sometimes where you have a piece of bread with butter on it, and that's your snack for the night. Or, you know, you have to, you're hungry, and sometimes you have to eat the same thing 5 days in a row because you can't afford to go out and get anything else, or maybe you have to wear shoes that, all of a sudden start having some patches in them, but you can't afford to go get new shoes because, again, the broadcasting money isn't flowing in the way that you thought it would. You run into that constantly. And so that's the hard thing about the industry that we're in, is because you have to kind of fight and claw your way to, I wouldn't say the top, but to a position to where you're comfortable and where you are in your career. So if you're asking, is sacrifice important? Is embracing the dogfight and the struggle and the grind? We don't just say that for our own sake, for our own health. When I talk about that, it's real. It is a real thing. And this is one of the hardest industries to stay in. But at the end of the day, just to give you a glimmer of light, the longer you do stay in, and it certainly has been the case for me, the more luck you're going to have. And I'll leave you with this, JT. It was actually this last summer I was thinking about, is this the end? I'm not joking, because I was in West Michigan and I was doing that. And obviously that's a solid position. Couple of the schools I was talking to weren't really getting back to me. And these are schools that normally are very good about bringing me on and having me do stuff. Some of the high school stuff was up for grabs. That was in question. Obviously, I wasn't talking to you guys a whole ton because you guys pretty much had a lot of things covered. And that wasn't on you. You didn't really necessarily need me because I had baseball going on the whole time. And so I was in the midst of this mindset of, and I even told my parents, I'm like, this might be it. Once this season's over, I might just have to go look for a sales job or something else and just try to make it happen. And I was very depressed, and I was a little down on myself. And then the fall comes around and we get to September and you're giving me games. And then this starts to pick up legs. And now I'm driving over to Detroit, what feels like a couple of times a week. And I love it. I love it because it's more opportunities for me. And then this school hits me up, and then another school, because I have a sports information director friend who's at a school down in South Bend. They hit me up to do games. And then I got Cornerstone University. And so when you least expect it, sometimes things will come to you that will keep you around in this industry. But in order to stay in it, sacrifice is everything. It's the cornerstone.
Obviously, that's a great drop there. Right? It's Cornerstone. All right. Good work. All right. Speaking of that, we are not sponsored by them, but One A Day.
Vitacrave.
Why don't you sponsor us One A Day?
You got to put the bottle somewhere that's visible to the camera.
Right.
Then more. Yep.
There we go.
There you go. I can see it. You're good.
Product placement. There we go. But anyways, no, and it's a great response. And as again, Peter said, preach, my brother. I mean, sacrifice is everything. But the biggest challenge that I think that anyone is going to face is not necessarily making the sacrifice. It's dealing with the sacrifice, right? And then ultimately the patience that comes along with it, right?
Yeah.
When, if you hear like stories, John Krasinski is a great example of that. John Krasinski, who was obviously the star of The Office, he had moved away from where he lived I'm not sure where he grew up. It might have been like Iowa or something like that. But he grew up in a small town here in the United States and decided he wanted to move to New York and pursue acting. And he even said, I most of my time was waiting tables. I was a server. I was serving people at restaurants. And it came to a point where he was getting ready to do his last, whatever. He's like, he called his mom, I'm coming home. I'm not doing this anymore. And he got the call back like a couple of days later for The Office, which obviously changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
His mother said, just stick it out for a few nights. Stick it out. There's no rush, whatever. I mean, and,
right.
and ultimately that led to him. And now look where he's at, right? His his path from being a server in New York to where he is today. It's life changing.
Right.
You do knowing when to call it, right? When to say,
Yeah.
hey, but
Well,
you
and
had
so that's yeah. Just very quickly, that's kind of why I have if you can see that flag up there, so burn the ships. That's actually, it's funny. People look at this setup that I have in here and they're like, "What does that mean? Is that like a military thing? Is that like you into pirates or something?" I'm like, "No, it's a story of a Spanish conquistador in the 1500s that landed in what is modern day Mexico." But all of his men were sick. They were tired. They were hurt. They didn't want to keep fighting. They didn't want to keep going. And so what this the leader of this group said is, okay, well, if you guys don't want to keep going, we're going to burn the ships. And he ordered them to burn the ships. And essentially what it was meant to do was meant to be a rallying cry to say, hey, we're going to get what we came here for, or we're going to die trying. Those are our options. And so it's kind of like this motto of like, there's no plan B. There's no looking back. And you kind of have to have that attitude if you want to make any sort of waves. And so that was kind of like the big thing. When I left my day job, I was like, burn the ships, man. We have an opportunity to do something special here. Burn the ships and go make it happen. So the other thing I'll say, JT, is you have to be comfortable with other people not understanding. That is the hardest thing. That is the hardest thing, and especially for young broadcasters. Because there was a year or so there that things were kind of uncomfortable with me and my parents, because there was this misunderstanding of, they looked at it as, why don't you have a full job or full-time job with a 401k and paid vacation and all that other stuff? Why don't you have that yet? And I'm like, guys, I have a job. I'm just not making the big bucks yet. And if I thought that I wasn't capable of going to the next level with this, I wouldn't even continue pursuing it. So that's the tough thing, is understanding. And even your friends, people are not really going to understand in this business what it is necessarily that you do. And that is the hardest thing to deal with, I think, a lot of times, in my mind.
Okay, and that's a great point, and I want to tackle that for a second, because somewhere in this world there's someone, and they may not be listening to us, but they're thinking that they have what it takes to get there. Now, Nathan, I 1000% believe that you do. So I don't for 1 second think that you don't. Okay.
Thank you.
But there are individuals out there who think they can do this and probably can't.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that to be disingenuous to the person trying, right? Not everybody has
Right.
the chops or the personality or all the intangibles that one would need in order
Mhm.
to maybe be successful at the highest levels in the broadcasting world. And the highest levels could be the highest level in your area. It could be like Dan
Right.
Miller is the highest level of football in Michigan, right? You think, right?
Mhm.
He's the radio guy in Michigan, right? Because in football, you don't have a home TV guy, right? TV girl, right?
Right.
It's radio. So he's reached the pinnacle of in Michigan, right? So
Right.
there are a lot of people that would love that opportunity. When did you realize that you had what it takes, or what you think it takes based on all of this? And when did you start thinking that, okay, I do have it. I could have it, because I'm sure there's a point in time where there's some doubt there, right? We all go through it. I've gone through it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not good enough to,
Yeah.
there's those moments. Some doubt in you is good, but is there blind doubt too, or blind like, yeah, I can do this? Because if we've seen American Idol, we've seen people run up down the stage, go, I can sing, and they are terrible.
Right.
And
Right.
does, what I mean? And so is there this level of like that fighting back and forth about how good you may or may not be, and how is it true?
Yeah.
Do you have people who are in your corner like saying, no, you're good, you are good, it's not just something that you think internally, like your friends, family, everyone thinks that you're good? Because I would imagine there's some people out there that think that they're good, they're not getting that criticism
Right.
one way or the other, and they don't know if to trust it or to believe it or whatever. So I'm curious
Right.
where you and your kind of thing was like, hey, yeah, no, I can do this.
Well,
you know,
you get that wake up call quickly, because here's the thing. It's not hearing that you're good from people. It's not a bad thing. When you start to buy into it, when it's coming from the wrong people, is when it starts to become problematic, right?
well,
So
who are the wrong
growing
people
up,
though? Who are the wrong people though?
just close family, friends, people that love you regardless and are going to hear the work that you're doing and go, that's great.
Oh, no, but
Because
so
not
you're saying that, like, for example, you're saying that your family or close friends, after
right.
listening to doing one of your games, would say, "Man, you're really good."
Yes. Yeah.
And
And
that
so
that is not the same as, like, your cornerstone, SID going, "You're good."
not even the SID. I would go more people that are in the industry or have done this at a high level. Those are the people that you're looking for kudos from. So for me, obviously growing up, I loved public speaking. So I went to Catholic school. So we would always have a part of mass where there were petitions that had to be read. And so they would normally send me up there because they're like, oh yeah, he loves public speaking and he's not nervous. And and I'm not, I do like public speaking, so there's that. And, teachers would always have me, read out of the books because they like the way that my voice sounded. I don't know. They just enjoyed listening to me read. I have no idea. But there was this element of, even when I was doing sideline reporting in high school, friends, family, all of them would be like, yeah, you're great. And then I got to college and I quickly realized, oh, like there's a lot of people around that all want to do what I want to do. And a lot of them tend to be better than me. The moment that I realized that the biggest doubt part of my life was COVID. I was fighting for reps at this university I was going to. They already had a basketball guy. He had been there for 20 some odd years, longer than I was alive. They already had guys for a couple of other things. And then there were 3 students that I came in with. Mind you, this is little old Cornerstone University. This is an NAIA program. And so I am fighting for any sort of reps that I can get. I mean, tooth and nail. And I'm raw. I mean, obviously, like I'm not, being that age, you're going to be raw. And so I had to go through a lot of lessons. I failed pretty much every time I put on a headset at Cornerstone. And so there was that element of doubt. But then I got the internship at the Whitecaps, being a media relations guy, this, that, and the other thing. Where it really started to hit me, though, was when the shutdown happened and there was no minor league baseball. So the only thing that I really had going for me, solid thing, was that internship with the Whitecaps. And voice-wise and presence-wise and play-by-play-wise, I wasn't there yet. So all of a sudden, my development wasn't getting any better. I didn't really have any opportunities. So when I went up to Traverse City, as I mentioned earlier, and I fell flat on my face. And every day I got up and I grinded, not only with my game notes and preparation, but just learning how to get better, learning how to sound better, the right things to say, my timing. What do the pros sound like, listening to them? I mean, my entire drive up there, I would listen to a different broadcaster every day. And you see, how do they approach this? What do they say? What's the verbiage they use? I would listen to playoff games, on TV. And so I eventually got there, and then I came back from Traverse City to West Michigan, where I was granted an opportunity to be their number 2. Something happened with our number 2. It fell through. So that was my first real shot. It's like, okay, you've been here as an intern. You've gotten a couple of on-air reps. We're in need, right? We don't have time to go look for number 2. You're going to be our number 2. Good luck. And I remember our broadcast, our producer, one of our producers, coming into the room after the game. And this is a guy he works with CBS. I mean, he does like a lot of big time productions. He works with, some pretty big time pros. And he comes in and he goes, hey, I don't know what happened over the last year, before you came back to us, because he had heard me on air a couple of times. But he goes, you took it from like right here to like, and then he had his other hand like way up here, and he goes, I just wanted to let you know that, and then little by little, it would be Dan that, would start coaching me a little bit harder. And that, bless his heart, man. I mean, he coaches me hard and I hate him some days for it, but he does. And I eventually started hearing it from him and other people. So that was the moment where I realized, okay, we're on to something here. This isn't just a dream. This isn't just a vision. This is something that's legitimately happening. So really from that point, it's just been a matter of just dedicating myself to figuring out what are the best ways of doing this job, and also being open to critiques, being open to the people who know better, critiquing my work and finding out ways I can do better. Apparently I got a Midwestern accent. I got to work on that. I didn't know, but that was my last lesson that I did. But that was really the moment where I realized, okay, this isn't just a dream. This isn't just a vision. This is real.
No, and that's again, that's really cool. The people don't I mean, people who understand this are the ones that are making the sacrifices and are probably in the thick of it or have been in the thick of it in their lifetime. My next question though is this. You had mentioned that, well, SIDs are great, that you obviously wanted to hear from, other people in the business who've been doing this a long time who can give you that feedback. I've had a chance to see some feedback from people who are in this business. And I do think on some level, and again, if someone were to say, "Hey, John," if I got to like the highest level, if I was calling an MLS game every Saturday night, Friday night, whatever for Apple TV, which would be freaking unbelievable, by the way. If I was doing that though, Nathan, and someone asked me for their opinion, for the sake of not being a jerk, I would try to be as nice and sugarcoated as much as we possibly can. I'd be like, yeah, keep working hard, buddy. You sound good here. I would probably be a little bit, I don't know this person, right? So it's more like, okay, I'm not, because for the sake of the public aspect of this, you don't want to come off being like a jerk. You know what I mean? Oh my man, dude, that was not good. You know what I mean? Now there's like this back and forth that could happen. So I do think for the people who are more in that higher echelon of the game, I don't think that they're going to give you the real honest opinion that they should, but I don't think that
and as a broadcaster, you should ask them for their worst when you send it to them.
Well, I know that, but the reason why I say this is because, and even in a public environment, you're definitely not going to see the full, you know what I mean? Like, and the reason why I say that, I see things on LinkedIn all the time. I see things in Facebook where, broadcasters are kind of having a back and forth with someone who's kind of made their, risen to the top, so to speak, of whatever environment they're in, and they come off being very, very nonchalant about it. And so, but my thing is this: at the end of the day, hearing from our peers in this industry is great. It is really important. At the end of the day, those peers do not hire us. It is directors, producers, heads of universities that hire us. And those universities and the way that they hire come from a different mindset than that of another broadcaster, right? So do you know what I'm talking about? Like, do you feel like, okay, so like your SID, he might talk to another SID and then another SID, and the next you're doing something because of those and how they talk, and they're going to talk about you differently than the broadcaster buddy, the peer in this industry. So my question for you is, when you're hearing feedback from an SID or from a broadcaster, does any of that carry more weight than the other? They carry equal weight to you?
Well, the broadcast coach side is, how do I sound better on air? How do I sound better presentation wise? How do I get rid of this Midwestern accent? How do I smooth out some of those words where maybe I hold the O or the a little bit too long? That's where that is important, right? So that's what I said. When you get what's that?
Want some pop?
We're going to go watch the Spartans at the bar.
Let's go get some pop and have some Vernors and some Lay's. No, Lay's. What you call it? Better made.
But that's the kind of stuff to smooth that stuff out, right? So when you get compliments from those people, especially the ones that have been in the industry for forever, those are the ones you got to pay attention to. And those are the people, I give that a lot of weight, because those are the people that know the people that do the hiring, right? So you got to know the people that know the people. They're typically those go-betweens. So I put a lot of weight on that. Now, in terms of the SID or the AD, I put a little bit of weight into that. I mostly put weight onto, what do you want to be off the air? What do you want to be on the air? Obviously, if there's any feedback from people who are listening, that's good, because typically it will come through them. Normally people aren't going to walk right up to me and be like, hey, you should do this, as opposed to doing this. So that to me does have some weight because obviously I want to put together a good show for the crowd that I'm doing it for. But in terms of my on-air presence, my delivery, and also connections in the industry, I think the people that are coaching me, the talent coaches, are very, very important and have a central role. So I don't think it's a matter of giving weight to one more than the other. But I will say this, and you know this too, Jonathan, you gotta play the political game a little bit. And I always, wherever I go for play-by-play, I always offer to do a little bit more than what they're asking of me. And it's simply because if you do that, you will probably be the most memorable of all the play-by-play people that are there, right? The biggest thing in my mind is make yourself available and be willing to do all of it if they ask you to do all of it. And so that's the thing is I want to make them happy because a lot of these places, once you're in the in club, you're not going to get kicked out. You know, once you have immersed yourself in that group and you're their guy, you're not leaving. I think about this with you, JT. I mean, Oakland brought you in, and now you're kind of their guy because in a lot of ways, you obviously you do the play-by-play side, right? But you got the production company too, and so you kind of went above and beyond. And so now, even if someone, you know, Mike Tirico Jr. comes along and they want to call games at Oakland University, they're probably not going to bring him in. He could live down the road. They're going to go, we already got our guy. And so that's the thing. And that's why there is some weight to that, because when I look at ADs or SIDs and they're like, yeah, we want it to be done this way. In my mind, it's like, okay, let me do that for you. And then I'm going to do a little bit extra. If you want me to do a little bit extra, I'm not going to charge you extra. You don't have to compensate me for it, but I'm going to do everything I can to make me your guy. And that's kind of what I am at Cornerstone. Now, obviously they don't have the budget of what, normally a Division I program would have, but I'm still their guy. And it makes it so much better because people love seeing you back around. So equal weight, more for the on-air side on one side, more for just growing relationships and getting into people's ears on the other.
No, again, it's I think you're spot on when it comes to that, because when I started at Oakland, and this is what Peter had mentioned here earlier. He's like, you have to make your own luck, and it goes, those play into it, right? Because as you just mentioned about Oakland, obviously now I've created this thing where I'm like, I'm locked in, right? So we're there's a production aspect, there's a play-by-play, so I'm deeply ingrained in the university, and that's all those things are fantastic. I can't for 1 second let any of that kind of, allow me to get comfortable or complacent, right? And that's the thing that I think that when people start to get complacent, right? And I think right now, if you started to talk about complacency at the highest of levels in the sport, I think people have been talking about Tony Romo, right? And about how he maybe in that year one, they were like, wow, he was really, really good. And now he's in this role for a couple of years. He's making a lot of money. He doesn't seem to be putting in the same kind of effort. That has been the complaint that I've been hearing, kind of like the chatter in the media over the last year and a half in regards to him specifically.
They told him to pull it back.
So, and complacency could be the word. It could be it could be a lack of prep. It could be a number of things that lead to what everyone, and I'll be the first one to say this. Me and you are coming from a world where prep for us is not a premium. Okay. Prep for us is like, we would love to have a week to prepare for a matchup. Like I would love to know that. And to be fair, Tony Romo, I mean, like my women's basketball schedule, I've had that since October. So there's no excuse for me not to really have, like every spotting board built for the entire year. But I don't do it that way, because if I do it that way, then I like in the week leading up to a game, I like building a spotting board so I remember a player's name and number, right? It kind of goes into that. I could totally do that, but I kind of like getting in this habit where I get it all done in the week leading up to a game, up to a broadcast. Like, for example, I have a game tomorrow at Oakland, so I'll actually prepare my spotting board in full today, leading up to that matchup, tomorrow. But think about that though, right? I mean, Tony Romo's got a week to prepare, for a matchup. team meetings. There's nothing else that he has to worry about outside of whatever else would come along with the role. But his job can be buried in prep for like literally a full-on week. You don't have that luxury.
No. Well, no. And it all comes down to organization. My biggest thing, and I don't make spotting boards for all the sports I do. And maybe that makes me
I
a
don't
little
either.
bit different. I'll always say, hey, one size doesn't fit all. And so my whole thing is just making sure, number one, that you're organized, but also that makes our level difficult too. And the guys who are at those highest levels will tell you. And I've heard it. I've heard it myself. I mean, I'm trying to think of who said it. I believe it was Bob Kaiser, the voice of the Grand Rapids Griffins, here in Grand Rapids AHL affiliate of the Wings. He said, "I don't know how you lower level guys do it. Like to follow the same exact team to every single game and to understand who it is you have on your team and what it is that's in front of you, that makes it a lot easier to follow along and be able to call something confidently. We have to deal with a changing of the guards all the time. I mean, I'll go from calling a Grace Bible soccer match to calling, ACHA hockey literally in the same day. And so this is where it kind of gets into prep looks different depending on what level you're at. It's just a matter of finding the most important thing to prep for, and also just keeping things organized, but also realizing, and we've said it a billion times and it will remain true, prep is 95% of what we do. The other 5% is the fun part. That's the part where you get to go on air and talk. But a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people think we just kind of show up and we just start talking. We're the talking guys. Like, no, there's a lot.
I don't know if people. I mean, I don't think they understand
in one way or another.
Yeah, I think that again, it's like a subconscious thing, right? Up there, But I don't know if they only go. Well, they just showed up and did it. I mean,
Right.
If
But-
people are that naive, then holy cow!
Yeah.
But
But
I do.
I will
understand
add
what you're
this.
saying.
What's that?
I said I do
yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I will add this about Tony Romo, though. He had to learn how to talk the normal people talk. It's tough for those old quarterbacks to come back in, and especially even for Tom Brady to talk like a normal person would. And the thing is like Romo was always like predicting the play before it happened. So I think there was a little bit of people on TV were like, you got to pull it back a little bit and talk the normal person talk, because you're talking like a true NFL quarterback right here. And it's great. And a lot of people love it, but there's also that aspect of it too, because you got to think when we're on our broadcast, I'm not addressing the biggest soccer nerd in the room when I'm broadcasting, or the biggest football nerd or basketball nerd. I'm addressing Doug, who's on his couch at home with the TV on, that, knows the game, but doesn't know the game maybe down to a T. So that's the only thing I'll add on that. But yeah, prep is everything, and it always will be.
Prep is everything. And no matter how much you prep, you're never, ever, ever fully prepared.
Ever.
It's crazy, right? No matter what you do. And I mean, you could look at every, and this is where I think people also understand too, Nathan, is that the higher levels, right? If you think about if you ever watched like some of the behind the scenes of like radio calls for like Dan Miller, there's someone standing right next to him, and he's got sticky notes, just like this.
Yep.
And what he's doing during the course of the game is literally taking his finger and sticking it on Dan's spotting board. When a player is catching a ball or a touchdown, and he points to it so that if Dan doesn't know who it was, he immediately knows who it is. Like in your lower level games, you don't have that. You don't have a spotter, right? You have someone that comes by every once in a while with a sheet of paper that happens to have some stats that in most cases are wrong. So and that's at my level at Oakland. Right. But when you start talking about the games that we do, like on the soccer network and National Soccer Network, we don't get that. We don't get like stats. So it's but yeah, I again, it's one of those things where no matter how hard you prepare, you're never fully prepared, and that's why we try to prepare as much as we possibly can for all the things that could come up in a game that allow us to do our jobs properly. So, Peter puts in here, I cannot see a play announcer call a game that has never watched or played the game. That is the worst. Before I started shooting soccer, I learned the game by doing my homework. Open Cup qualifying is a challenge to prep. Some teams have no website, even UPSL. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine on most levels. Again, most of these teams don't have a place, and that's why That's why you have to create some kind of a platform that allows teams and coaches to be able to share information, so that whether it be a coach or an owner or a team, that someone's doing it. That is a wrap here on episode number 13. Isn't that hard to believe? I'm adding a little music in here today. little music, you know. But we appreciate you stopping by and being a part of Inside the Game, the soccer podcast, all things sports here on the National Soccer Network. Jump turn alongside Nathan Wanger. If he's first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button, like us, and share us with your friends and family. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go check us out and share this with your friends. And we'll be back at this tomorrow morning, same time, same place, 9 a.m., right here on the National Soccer Network. For all of us, the great rest of your cold day here in Michigan and around the country.